What?
It's time now for My Two Favorite Librarians, brought to you by the Copper Tree Boutique in Dales Grand Market, located in beautiful, historic downtown Amherst.
Hi, this is My Two Favorite Librarians. I'm Denise Corey.
I'm Chantel Taylor, and today we're talking about novellas.
Short books.
Quick reads.
Sometimes you just want something short.
Sometimes you want to read 5 books in a week.
I did read 7 books in a week when I was on vacation.
Yeah.
Do you hear the sadness in my voice? I had to come back to work.
Technically, this week you're back from vacation this week.
Yes, we are recording in advance. Sometimes you want a short book to act as a palate cleanser.
Yeah?
If you've read something long, or if you've read something that's particularly involved, or Les Mis.
Yes.
So I was trying to find a definition for a novella, and there are like a bunch of different ones out there. So it's really hard. It's longer than a short story, but shorter than a novel. That's not really...
Yes, there's no exact page numbers or anything like that.
No. They say around 14,000 to 17,000 words. I don't know how long that is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I guessed it. Also, I used a list.
Me too.
I bet it was the same one.
Probably not. Well, I did look at your Book Riot list.
Yeah, so Book Riot put out a list of the 100 must-read novellas, but this list is from 2016, so it's a few years old. I will post that on our Facebook group. My Two Favorite Librarians Facebook group.
It's pretty classic books, though.
Yeah, there weren't anything that was really new. I don't know if novellas have fallen out of favor or...
Do you know what I noticed on that list was there are a lot of books to movies on that list, and I thought, must be interesting that all of these short stories or novellas made it into movie form. It must be simpler to
because
fit it into 90 minutes.
Yeah, you don't have to cut as much, and generally with a novella there are less plot lines.
Yes, it's true.
Because you can't fit as much into as like a long book. So yeah,
a lot of them
have been, So I pulled a couple out of that list that I was going to mention. Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Top of my list, yep.
So Breakfast at Tiffany's, you and I did that with our book clubs a couple years ago.
We read the book and watched the movie.
Yes, and we had like a little get-together with a potluck. That's not happening this year. So I had watched Breakfast at Tiffany's probably when I was, 18 or something. And rewatching it, wow, that movie is incredibly racist.
Everything from that time was, really.
More so than the book. The book was not. I mean, it did have some things, yes. But in the book, the Asian character was just put upon because he always had to let Holly go lightly back into the apartment because she never had keys. But in the movie, they made him just so, it was terrible. Anyway, Breakfast at Tiffany's, 178 pages.
Yes. And really a good story. I do really love Truman Capote.
You talked about Truman Capote last week.
I did.
Except that one was nonfiction. Did he primarily write fiction or nonfiction?
I think he wrote a bit of a mix. Because what were they called? The Swans?
Oh, yeah. I read a book about him.
Writing that book. Because that was a mix of like fiction and nonfiction. Thinly veiled fiction.
Did you have anything you wanted to add about Breakfast at Tiffany's?
No.
Oh, okay. How about Of Mice and Men? Have you read that?
No. But I did not realize it was a novella.
107 pages. And also made into a movie multiple times.
I feel like that movie was like 100 hours long, and yet we could probably read the book quicker than watch the movie.
I don't think it was 100 hours long.
I don't know. I feel like everything from that era was like 2.5 hours long.
But it was remade again because Gary Sinise played George.
I'm thinking Grapes of Wrath.
Oh, see, Grapes of Wrath, the book was long. Yeah.
I'm thinking Henry Fonda.
Yeah. Of Mice and Men makes me cry. It's so very sad because George and Lenny, kind of cling together, trying to fulfill their dream of owning their own farm, but that it's never going to happen. And Lenny has some intellectual difficulties, and it's just very sad. You probably don't want to read it.
Maybe 107 pages.
I mean, yeah, it's like
Nothing.
yeah, an evening.
Yeah. Stepford Wives.
I did read the book, but a long time ago. And I also watched the movie, and then I watched the remake movie, and
Terrible.
it was terrible. Terrible. Nicole Kidman, you should be shamed.
I agree. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
I've never read it.
I did not realize that was a novella either.
Did you read it?
No, I don't.
What noise is that?
Did I read it? No, I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did.
So I went off of the list then because they had mentioned a book by Stephen King, a novella by Stephen King on the list, and they had mentioned The Langoliers, which is fine. But then I thought, no, I would rather talk about, he has a collection called The Skeleton Crew, which I read probably in the summer of '89.
I think that's the book I read.
It's got The Mist
Yeah,
and The Raft.
I'm scarred.
So The Mist made it so that I couldn't go into the fog. Come on, we're like in a very humid location. There's a lot of fog. And then The Raft, if you have never, because The Mist has been made into a movie and a
yeah.
miniseries and blah, blah, blah. But The Raft never was. It should be, though. Oh, it was so good. It's about these 4 college students, and it's the end of summer. They say in October. I don't know what summer that is. The water would be really cold.
Southern summer, maybe.
So they're swimming out to this raft in a lake the end of summer, and then they notice that there's this like black substance floating on the lake, and one of them notices that the black substance is following them as they swim, and his other friends were like, no, you're just foolish, like that's just not happening. And then one of them like, oh, it's really pretty, and she touches it, and then it sucks her in and rips her to shreds, and then the black substance grows, and then they're trapped on this raft, and they can't like swim back to shore, and then it starts to try and like ooze up through the like cracks. Oh man, it was so frightening to me.
Oh, I hated that book.
I loved that book. It was terrifying.
I'm actually surprised you didn't glom on to the Canadian title that was in that list.
Which one was that?
Margaret Atwood.
The Penelope. I did read that. Did you read it?
No.
No, because you hate Margaret Atwood.
I read her books, and that's enough.
This one is about mythology. Oh, now, of course, I can't think of any of the people's names because I'm under pressure.
That's fine. We can move along to something more fun.
What about The Ocean at the End of the Lane?
No.
Neil Gaiman?
No.
You didn't read it?
No.
I thought you liked Neil Gaiman.
I apparently only like the Graveyard Book. I've tried other things, and it's just like, no. Is that World War II?
It's...
Because there was another one that was like kind of sort of the same title at kind of sort of the same time that one came out, and I always mix them up.
Are you thinking The Light Between Oceans?
Yeah, maybe.
Here's one that I want to read, and I never have. The Old Man and the Sea.
I have read that.
Have you? I keep thinking I should read some Hemingway. I read books about Hemingway and haven't actually read... Oh, although I did read A Movable Feast before we went to Paris.
So there you go. You've done it. You don't need to read anymore.
Is that your like view of reading? Well, you've read one book about a duke, so you're done.
It's not the same thing as reading Hemingway. Speaking of dukes,
let's talk about some dukes, because apparently there are 100 million of them.
novellas are very popular in the romance genre and in a lot of different ways. So it's very interesting the number of series that start with a novella For instance, my favorite, Immortals After Dark, started with a novella where she's begun the world building, and then it's all sort of solidified in the first book.
But they also have a lot of these like half books in between.
That's what I'm talking about. So there's also between the regular books. I'm currently reading one of the Spindle Cove books, and there's lots of in between. There's a 1.5 and a 3.5 and a 4.5. But there's also lots of really good novellas that are sort of standalone. Oh, I did want to mention, just before I talk about standalones, I talked about this a lot last summer, Alyssa Cole's Reluctant Royal series. There are several novellas in that, Can't Escape Love and Twice Ghosted, Once Shy. Really, really good. I highly recommend that series, and I did buy all the novellas. And when I was over in Adam's office, I was like, please put these in the catalog immediately, because I'm going to talk about them on the radio again. So, romance novellas.
Standalone.
Miss Martin's Incomparable Adventure by Courtney Milan. This is one that's been making the rounds earlier, pre-pandemic. I did buy it for the library because it was on a lot of lists. The heroines are in their 70s. You don't get a lot of senior citizen, lesbian, Victorian romance.
I don't think you do.
And apparently it's hilarious. Courtney Milan, I like her very much.
But you haven't read it yet. Do we have it?
We own it. Okay. I did buy it for us because I kept seeing it coming up on lists.
I remember you saying we bought it, but it was just...
We have it. We own it.
Sometimes it takes a while for things to get to us, and especially this year, everything got held up. Oh.
One of my favorites that I keep waiting for a series to be made out of, and I don't think it will be because now she's moved on to something else, is Mating the Huntress by Talia Hibbert. So I'm really sad that it's not a series of novellas because I want to know about the siblings. I talked about this a couple of years ago too. It's about a werewolf and a werewolf hunter who fall in love.
She really likes to emphasize the wolf part now because I've made fun of her so many times for saying werewolf.
Also,
completely ignores what I say.
Yeah, I'm just moving on. Talia Hibbert, of course, her big novels this year have been Take a Hit, Danny Brown, and Get a Life, Chloe Brown. If you haven't read or listened to those and you're a romance lover, absolutely. They're contemporary, they're not historical. Go out and get them. Also, romance novella, I don't know what you call them, compendiums?
Anthology. No,
it's not quite, because there's a difference. There's like 1001 Nights, which is, I would consider like an anthology. It's a bunch of different like short stories. But for instance, Hamilton's Battalion, about Alexander Hamilton.
Who is very popular right now.
Yes.
Now that song is going through my head.
If you haven't watched that on Disney Plus, very good. It's a collection of novellas by Alyssa Cole is the one I know the most. And I think it's not Courtney Milan, I didn't write down. There's also a lot of seasonal romance novellas, which I do love. So,
well, and the big romance authors who you don't always mention because they're not the ones that you love, but like Debbie McComber and...
I wouldn't consider her romance.
Really? Huh. But they'll often have, like, there'll be 4 different authors and they'll do, like, a seasonal or...
Yeah. 2 Christmases ago, How the Duke Stole Christmas was a anthology or collection by Sarah McLean, Joanna Shoup, Sophie Jordan, and Tessa Dare. And they each took like a Christmas movie and kind of made it into a historical romance. So I know there was like Home Alone. There was, I can't remember them all now.
Please let one of them be Die Hard.
No, there was not Die Hard. I feel
Gremlins?
like Christmas in Connecticut was another one. I can't remember. Speaking of Joanna Shoup, I do want to talk about one of her short stories that, again, began a series. So it's her Knickerbocker Club series. And it was Tycoon, which was 0.5 in the series. So, heroine witnesses a crime.
Is it wrong that I want to be like Shoup, Shoup-a-doop?
Yeah,
It
it's not
is.
spelled the same.
Okay.
Heroine witnesses a crime. This is a Gilded Age American novel.
Well, Knickerbockers.
Yes, I know, but nonetheless. I'm not a big fan when romance goes to America. Historically, I'm like, no. But this was actually really good, and I need to read more Joanna Shoup. Heroine, on the run, sees a crime, corrupt police officer. She's going through the train station to get on a train and get away. He's following her. She gloms on to the first man she sees and is like, "You're my husband." And so they have to pretend to be husband and wife. So it's a forced proximity novel. And what makes this novel like fantastic, and this was in the description of a review I read, was that it was a happily ever after in 3 days, and they had to solve a crime.
That seems ambitious.
Yeah, for a novella. It was good.
Did
was
it all take place on the train, too?
Yes, they're all on the train together. So I also wanted to highlight one of our favorite erotica titles, which is Sinners on Tour. That's one of our favorite series, which Denise has never read.
I'm like,
she
"Wow,
hates it.
how is that my favorite?" Although I know everything about it because
Yes.
you have mentioned it so many times, so I know all about it. Yeah.
There are numerous between the books. So this is about a like heavy metal band, and they're finding their women over the course of these books. But there's Sinners at the Altar. There's Take Me to Paradise. There's One Starry Night. So it's like honeymoons. And then there's like, she keeps promising that there's a baby one coming out soon. And it's just like the worst, best thing ever.
How does that work for touring rock stars?
Well, see, these are ideal romance rock stars who want to get their wives pregnant and then stay with them forever.
I see.
That doesn't exist in real life. I also wanted to say with romance, a lot of times they can be digital only, which is a problem.
Yeah, especially the novella between the books ones.
Yes.
Yeah. And those are usually digital in a format that we can't get for the library.
Sometimes. Now, Penny Reed, for her Winston Brothers series, she did some between the books, like kind of funny little like letters between characters, or like little, not even novellas or short stories, but like maybe like a portion that couldn't go into the book. That was a bit too long, but wasn't really long enough to make a novella. And when she finished the series, she put them all together in a book. So sometimes they do that, but sometimes they're just digital only.
And were those ones available on Hoopla?
They might be, actually. I'm going to have to look at that because I
Some
bought
of
it.
the Penny Read is available on Hoopla.
All of the Penny Read is available on Hoopla.
So I am not currently reading a novella or a collection of short stories. I just finished The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory. And I feel like you have things you're going to want to say about that.
No, I'm very excited that you're taking this like small pause into romance land.
Well, I was reading it on vacation, and it is a good beach book because it doesn't really require
Much like
a lot. Like, I don't have to spend a lot of time really digging into the characters' motivations, right?
you also discovered this vacation that you prefer contemporaries to historical romances.
Yes, because I also read Wolf Gone Wild.
And tell us what you thought about that.
I thought it was funny.
It's so cute. I
And
love it.
It was funny and nerdy, and yeah, again, did not require much from me.
Delightful.
So, The Wedding Date, which is the last book I just finished. So, book number 63 of this year. How many do you have?
I'm in the 40s now.
Okay. I'm still winning.
It's not a competition.
It is. So,
not.
it is.
It's not.
But it is.
It's only a competition for you.
These two strangers get stuck on an elevator together in a hotel, and not for very long even,
Yeah, it's just a couple minutes.
but long enough that she agrees to go to a wedding with him on the weekend,
And he eats the cheese out of her purse.
which sounds like the weirdest line ever.
But she's on her way up to her sister's.
Yes.
And
so
she's got like wine and cheese.
fancy cheese.
Yeah.
And yes. So she agrees to go to a wedding with him and pretend to be his girlfriend for the weekend because the wedding is his ex-girlfriend
And ex-best friend.
and ex-best friend getting married. So, and then
And is he not the best man?
he's a groomsman.
Oh, groomsman. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what not currently reading, just finished. What are you currently reading?
So I also just finished Do You Want to Start a Scandal by Tessa Dare, which is part of the Spindle Cove series. And it started off really good. Didn't finish as well as I hoped. I was telling you guys about it on the weekend. There's a great scene where the hero and the heroine are caught in a library. They have to get behind the curtains and hide because another couple comes in and does some adult things in the room. And then they get caught trying to leave after the other couple is gone. And they get caught by this kid, and the kid's like, oh, I heard noises. And they're like, oh, no, there was no noises. And he's like, I heard noises. And he makes a big scene, and he starts yelling, murder noises. I heard murder noises. And then he proceeds to reenact everything that he heard, which is quite obviously not murder noises, in front of a group of people. And so they get blamed for what happened and have to get married.
Like you do. So let's talk library for a minute. We have several of our locations open, reduced hours. Check our website to see what the hours are. Some of them are just doing grab and go. Some of them are open to the public. So it just depends on the location, how big it is. We are also still offering borrow by mail to anybody in the county who can't come into the library for whatever reason. So if it's just because you don't feel comfortable coming in, that's fine too. We will mail books or other library materials to your home or to your post office box. This is an absolutely free service. We include the return postage for you. And we also have a number of online resources. Overdrive gives you audiobooks and ebooks. RB Digital gives you digital magazines. And Hoopla has audiobooks, ebooks, music, movies, and TV shows. Last night, I watched a documentary on Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, nice.
It's because I read Daisy Jones and the Six.
Nice.
And you can find all of this information on our website, which is
www.cumberlandpubliclibraries.ca.
Woo! We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we have a My Two Favorite Librarians Facebook group. Come on there and chit-chat books with us. We love it. We also post some of our lists and whatnot on there. Do you know what next week is?
I don't actually know what next week is.
Because I didn't tell you.
Oh, it's something horrible.
Celebrity book clubs.
Oh, okay.
Your face, you're like, well...
It could be worse. It could be all Canadian.
Yeah.
Margaret Atwood is next week.
Oh, yeah. We're just going to do a week of Margaret Atwood. I'm going to go write that down in my office so I don't forget.
Let's start 2021 off on a great foot.
Yeah, just Margaret Atwood. Oh, each week we'll read a different Margaret Atwood book.
No, that's
She's
not happening.
put out lots.
And I've read some of them, and I'm done.
All right, we'll talk to you next week.
My Two Favorite Librarians. Brought to you by the Copper Tree Boutique in Dales Grand Market, located in beautiful, historic downtown Amherst.